Hey guys, I have another author from Penguin and back at the booth now, no longer outside, but it's okay. And as you can tell, there's a height difference, but it's okay because it's really all about him, not really about me. You can just see my forehead. That's totally cool. So we'll have him go ahead and introduce himself and tell us a little about himself.
Sure. I'm Daniel H. Wilson. I wrote a novel called Robopocalypse, and my latest novel is called The Clockwork Dynasty.
So I was super excited when I saw your name come up because I did read Robopocalypse, and it just further fueled my fear of robots in general. No, that's okay. I'm used to it. I'm pretty much Chicken Little at this point.
I really love robots, though. I don't want to scare people too much. The latest novel is a little more positive when it comes to robots. So.
Yeah, surprisingly, it was a bit more positive, although I thought it was going to go towards like a really dark and like, oh my God, they're all... No, it actually left on a really surprisingly positive, uplifting note. How do you pronounce that, the way you spell it?
It's a Russian word. It was initially the title for the book, and then I realized, because it looks so cool when you write it down, it's A and then a V, and like I just love how it looks, Avtomat. But unfortunately, nobody can pronounce it, because we're not all Russian.
Which part of the history kind of like started that ball rolling? I caught Terracotta Soldiers a little bit, but I wasn't sure if that was correct.
Yeah, it started when I was writing the sequel to Robopocalypse. I was writing a book called Robogenesis, and there's a character named Maxim, who's a Russian guy, in that novel, and the more I really fell in love with that character. He was so interesting to me because he was really smart, but he was also just very much like just a masculine kind of like a guy with an axe. He was like a janitor, like a really smart janitor. And like I really loved that character, and I started researching that area, and then that's what drew me into Russia. But also just the idea of court automatons, these ancient robots. I've always loved that because I love robots. Obviously, that's kind of my thing. Yeah. And what's always blown me away is that people have been building robots for thousands of years. In China, Russia, every culture has like evidence of these ancient machines, and I love that it's just a human thing to look at the world and say, I want to build an artifact that can do what I can do. Each of these robots, they're designed to look like people because they kind of embody virtues of like humanity. And so what I like is different cultures have words that don't have any crossover in other cultures, and often they're virtues. So like pravda is kind of like truth, but it also sort of means honor and like justice a little bit, and it's this uniquely kind of Russian thing. And then in China, there's like the concept of yin and yang, which is very, very Chinese and very mixed up in the whole culture. And so I tried to use those types of virtues and words sort of to base each robot after.
Did you just base these values off of Russia and China, or did you kind of like these were already important values to you?
Well, I thought they were fascinating because they were culturally specific, but as it turns out, the Avtomat have been around a long time. So in terms of cultures, they've seen a few come and go. But yeah, I really did want to explore the idea of meaning and purpose. And what I love about robots as like a tool to use in a story to convey like a theme is that they seem simple. They seem like simpler versions of people, but they're really not, So like, what if I told you like, the meaning of your life is one word? All you got to do is fulfill that word. Just be brave, or do the one thing, be loyal, and like whatever the word is. And you think, oh, that's simple, right? And then you start to realize that the context of that word, other people kind of decide what it means. We all sort of agree together, and it changes as civilization changes, and so it's a moving target that you never hit. And that's really what it's about, is these machines and their quest for purpose and how they're defined by human beings, even though they're kind of better than human beings.
Especially seeing Peter struggle with all that. I thought that was really fascinating.
He's very angsty.
He's so angsty. And I was like, this is just me fangirling, but I actually love that, like, they were known as vampires for a while. I thought that was so...
People think that they're vampires. Yeah, because they're basically immortal, and they're trying to blend in, so they don't... At first, in the old days, they're not... The technology is like ceramic, and so they don't really look exactly like people. But as technology starts progressing, they start utilizing like new materials and stuff to really start looking like people. Then they can kind of go out in the day and just be out with people. But before that, they're hiding. They come out at night. It's an easy mistake to make.
Although one thing I was curious about, and I don't know if you're just going to be like, just figure it all out by yourself, is like, how, like, so they're moving clockwork and stuff like that. How did they stay lubricated? Like, they can't really eat. It just goes all through. Like, doesn't that rust? I was kind of fixated on that portion.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's like whenever you read a novel, like with an action hero, like they never show you the part where they go to the bathroom or whatever. It's like you're watching like like Die Hard, and it's like, when did he go to the bathroom? Like, he was in there a long time.
Actually, I was wondering about that too. When did he go to the bathroom?
But I think it's kind of understood that you know, you don't really need to attend to that ideally. So my feeling is that they're constantly upgrading themselves, and you see a lot. They're fixing each other, they get damaged and they repair, and so, you know, my feeling is that that all occurs during those moments.
With the birds, and it says 1313.
Yeah.
I was like, is that a code for something and I missed something, or is that just like a robot thing?
Yeah, that's just me making stuff up. I've been thinking about that one, and I was like, I could have done that better. I should have put something cool in there, you know, like.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I really did. But so my fun little question to you is, what word do you think you would be ruled by?
Oh, if I wanted to fulfill a word, I really relate to Elena, the character. So logic,
fun.
you know, I like logic.
Now, I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, this won't be the end of these two. Will we get to see more?
Yeah, I mean, it's an epic world. It goes, I've got all of history to play with. I've got all the different virtues I can think of, you know, for different characters. And then I've also got to figure out and explain where they all came from. And there's so much scope that I really do hope I get to explore it.
I'm curious about Elena. Will we ever get to see her portion of what happened?
I love her character. So the book is split between June Stepanoff, who is an anthropologist, and she helps figure out where they all came from in the modern day, and then Peter, who's going through history. Old angsty Peter, old 6'8" badass immortal Peter. So what was the question again?
Will we see more Elena?
I already wrote a short story in the Clockwork Dynasty world from Elena's perspective, because I really do, I love her. And so it concerns the period of time she spends alone in the abandoned mansion. And so that will be released in a short story collection called Guardian Angels and Other Monsters that is coming out in March of next year. So yeah, so if you really like Elena, there's at least a little taste coming soon.
And then the last question is, of course, there's a little bit of a steampunk vibe, obviously, with this one. Any particular steampunk music or bands that were associated or influenced, or that you connect with this book?
You know, I was listening to like classic stuff, like Handel, like harpsichord stuff. So I mean, it's not exactly like a jam. When you're imagining like an immortal robot that looks like a 12-year-old playing a harpsichord in an abandoned mansion, you know, like on a foggy moor, like, you gotta listen to that music and get into it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I love the book. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.